One of the questions you guys keep asking me quite often is how do you link a blend shape to a springbone? For example, how to make your ears wiggle when you blink your eyes. There are many ways of doing this, and today we're gonna look into one of the easiest ways to do this. Hi, it's your friendly neighborhood VTuber Suvi here, again with a new VNyan basics tutorial. Today we're gonna look into VNyan's pendulum system and how to link that into a control bone in your avatar to easily wiggle your ears or basically anything else by linking them to a blend shape value. So, for this you're going to need to use Unity a little bit unless your avatar already supports control bones. So, let's get started, shall we? In order to move any of your avatar's bones in VNyan, if they are something to be controlled by spring bones, is that you have something called a control bone. And a control bone is basically the root of your spring bone, basically a node or a bone that is not controlled by the spring bone. So for example, in this avatar, you will see that there is ear control bone here as the root of the ear chain. And only after that does the actual ear chain start, like so. So this ear L bone here, for example, is the root of the spring bone chain. And then we have the next ear bone here. But this control is not actually controlled by a spring bone. This means that we will be able to rotate this bone in VNyan. Now, if you're wondering how it is set up as a spring bone, this is just an example. So in this case, the first ear bones are the root elements. So the control bones are not being controlled by spring bone. So what do we do in VNyan to get this easily done? We have basically two options. We could either create a node graph that controls the ears, or we could use the pendulum system. And I think today we will use the pendulum system as it is super simple to do it with that. So we will simply go to the pendulums, and we will now need to create a new pendulum. Basically something that reacts to our eyes and then makes the ears wiggle. For this kind of movement, it should be enough to just have two pendulums for our system. So let's just click chain, add chain. And let's make the left ear first. So we need to click the input values first, like so. And in here, we need to basically link it to a blend shape. Now, since we are using 𝐒𝐻𝐋𝐋 tracking, our blend shape is called 𝐼_blink_left. You can check your blend shape values, of course, in the monitor, and you should find the values here simply by searching for blink. And since we are using 𝐒𝐻𝐋𝐋, you can see that the blink actually is indeed the 𝐼_blink_left. So we'll copy this 𝐼_blink_left by clicking here and then pasting it here like so. Now, what other values should we use? There's actually a couple ways to do this, depending on how you want your ears to work. If you want them always to jiggle when you just blink and not actually remain down, then the pos X is a good option. And we can set the multiplier to 1. As you can see, now each blink is moving the bones. But if your eye remains closed, the ears stop wiggling. In many cases, this is not the wanted behavior, but you actually want the ears to remain down if your eyes are closed. So in that case, we would go with the angle, like so. And the multiplier, we would need to set much higher value now because this is, of course, like degrees. So we could set it to like 100 or something like that. And now, as you can see, when we close our eyes, it remains up like so. So we shall use this today. So now we have our input values, let's go with the output values next. So click on the plus, and the bone number, we're going to use the second bone. So we put number 2 here. We don't need any blend shapes for this, nor any parameters, but we do need a multiplier value. Let's start with 1. We can adjust this later. We do not need offsets, unless you want your ears to have certain offset rotation. And now to the avatar game object, we need to actually pick the control bone. So let's click the search icon and search for our ears. And we can find the ear control left here, like so. Now you can already see slight movement of the ear, but it's nowhere near enough. So we're gonna need to increase the multiplier until we're happy with the result. Also, we can notice that the ears wiggle possibly to a wrong direction. So you can adjust which axis is gonna be used for your ear wiggles. Personally, I prefer the rotation Z as this makes them go up and down in my model, but in your model things may be different. Now we have like a very small wiggle now going on, so we could increase this to like 20 and the wiggle would be more. Now of course you can then adjust how the wiggle performs by changing, for example, the damping value. If you set it to very low, then the ears will wiggle a lot, like back and forth. If you want them to really just follow without much additional wiggling around, then you can increase the value. So it all comes down to finding the kind of values that work for you. And then of course you need to repeat these steps for the other ear. So just add another chain, link it to the eye blink right, and then the ear control right. And then the result is that you will have both ears wiggling very easily without a node graph. I hope this tutorial was useful for you. And remember that it is good practice to use these control bones in general everywhere else in your model as well, even if you were not using pendulums. But if you were actually using a node graph to move some bones, then they're also good for that. If you have any questions you would like to have covered in this VNyan basic tutorial series, do write it down in the description, and also do that if you have a better way of doing these things that we cover during these tutorials. Anyway, see you next time, cuties. Bye bye!